Coming up next, Sitting at 30 takes you downtown for the weekly luncheon meeting of the City Club of Portland. Live weekly coverage of City Club is produced through the facilities of Portland Cable Access. Now we join the City Club for this week's program.
Another outstanding City Club Friday Forum. Today, we focus on a subject that is of critical importance to all of us, the state of Portland Public Schools, with School Board Chair Debbie Goldberg Menashe and Interim Superintendent Jim Scherzinger. But first, a few announcements. We have a new member to welcome, Karen Merrill, Employee Assistance Program Account Executive with Magellan Behavioral Health. Karen, there she is. Thank you. Welcome. And two announcements, please take note. Last week's horror has focused the American people more than any event in the last half century, and perhaps because of the power of modern media, more than any event in our history. How should this free people respond? Government Services and Safety, along with the Business and Technology Issues Committees, believe the City Club should offer leadership in the developing debate while there is time to productively influence local, state, and national government public safety policy. What restrictions can freedom survive? What may be necessary for order to prevail? What consideration must we give to the kind of world we will give our grandchildren as we address the pressing demand for immediate retribution? On Tuesday, October 2nd, until we're finished, we will be at the City Club office at 5:30 for a discussion on what City Club can offer in a leadership role. We'll be at the headquarters, 319 Southwest Alder on the 10th floor. Another important announcement. Tuesday, October 9th, the League of Women Voters is sponsoring a panel discussion on the Oregon tax system and its dependence on income tax revenues, as well as possible alternatives. Panelists will be Richard Munn, retired Director of the Department of Revenue, Representative Lane Shutterly, Chief of the House Revenue Committee, and Representative Mark Hass, member of the House Revenue Committee. Because of the City Club's long-term interest in this subject, members are encouraged to attend. And this one is at Westminster Presbyterian in the Fireside Room, and Westminster is at 16th and Northeast Hancock. Friday, October 5th, we have had a change in programming in order to respond to the horrible events of September 11th. Our speaker next week will be Neil Kenny Geyer. He is the Chief Executive Officer for Mercy Corps. Mercy Corps has worked on the ground and with the people of Pakistan and Afghanistan for over 15 years. Mr. Kenny Geyer will share his perspective of the culture, lifestyle, challenges, and beliefs of these people who are now so much a part of our daily lives. And this will be here at the Mac Club. Please note in the bulletin that there will be a brief membership orientation for new members immediately following this program in the lounge area right outside this room. Interested members should go directly to the lounge for a special opportunity to meet some board members and our staff. For those of you who may not be aware, the City Club website offers access to research reports, past club program presentations, upcoming events, and membership information. Check us at our website, www.pdxcityclub.org. Our board host today is Katie King, a member of the Board of Governors and Intergovernmental Relations Liaison for the Oregon Health Division. She will ask the first question of our speakers. Following Katie's question, we will open the program to questions from club members in the audience. Please line up behind the microphone in time to ask, as soon as Katie's finished, so that we have time to ask as many questions as possible. Please identify yourself as a member of the City Club and keep your questions to 30 seconds or less. I also want to welcome once again the members of the Lincoln High School Constitution team. Thank you. They are honorary members of City Club thanks to a partnership between Stoll Reeves Law Firm and the City Club. These students will be with us several times this year, and as club members, they have the privilege of asking questions from the floor. Broadcast of City Club programs this quarter is made possible in part by corporate underwriting from the following: Legacy Health Systems, Pope and Talbot, and Washington Mutual Savings Bank. We are very grateful for their support. Our speakers today are Debbie Goldberg Menashe, Chair of the Portland School Board. Debbie is a graduate of Reed College and an attorney who has practiced law here in Portland since 1988. She's an active volunteer in the Portland Public School system and was elected to the school board in July of '99. She's been chair of the board for 1 year, elected to that position by her peers. Debbie and her husband, David, have 2 children in our school system. Jim Scherzinger has been the interim school superintendent since July. Before he was Portland Public Schools' chief financial officer for nearly 3 years. Beginning in 1984, Jim was the director of Legislative Revenue Office in the Oregon State Legislature. He's educated in math and economics from Santa Clara University and studied for a PhD with the University of Oregon. Jim and his wife, Claire Carter, have 3 children. So of the two of the 3 people here in good old small town Portland are somewhat related to me. Katie's uncle is married to my cousin Mary Jo, and Jim's cousin Gil is married to my Auntie Rose. So,
I guess I'm the outsider. Thank you all for coming today. It's really an honor to have been asked to speak here before family, my mother-in-law, my aunt, all down here, good friends, so many people with whom I work with at Portland Public Schools, and students. It's wonderful to have you here. And many community leaders who treasure, support, and guide this city and its institutions, especially in light of the tragedies in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania in the past few weeks. I know that we are all thinking about things that really matter. And education of our children and young adults really, really matters. So thank you for being here and demonstrating your interest and support of public education in Portland. To those of you, though, who are here to hear about the crisis on the school board, I hope you won't be too disappointed. If you look over there, my school board colleagues are all here together. No food fight, no loud discussion. And I appreciate their being here, and I want to say thank you in particular to all of them for the extraordinary amount of time and devotion to Portland Public Schools that each one of them serves. Carla Wenzel. Over there is our Vice Chair, Carla Wenzel, board members Mark Abrams, Derry Jackson, Sue Hagmeyer, Lorenzo Poe, Julie Brim-Edwards, and the only one missing, I don't see her here, is Jennifer Lewis, our student representative who is a student at Madison High School, and she brings wonderful perspective and brings us all down to earth sometimes from a student's point of view. She's probably in school, that's true. As most of you know, in June 2000, after more than a 9-month-long community-wide process, the school board adopted a 5-year strategic plan for Portland Public Schools. In that plan, we adopted a new mission for the district. The mission of Portland Public Schools is to support all students in achieving their very highest educational and personal potential, to inspire them in an enduring love for learning, and to prepare them to contribute as citizens of a diverse, multicultural, and international community. The objectives of that plan are that by 2005, 100% of our students will demonstrate significant growth every year toward achieving rigorous system-wide expectations. 100% of our students will continually set ambitious learning goals, persist in pursuing those goals, and demonstrate evidence of progress. And 100% of our students will willingly and regularly contribute to the community. The mission and objectives as set forth by the district strategic plan are truly wonderful, but they're not easily or immediately implementable. And it's now up to the school board and the district, and this has been extremely clumsy since June 2000, to begin implementation. How do we do that? Well, first, we have to set clear objectives for the district and for individual schools. Then we have to monitor and measure progress towards those objectives. Since this past July, the school board has been working collaboratively with district administration to come up with and clearly express our priority objectives for implementation of the strategic plan in the coming year. I want to pay special tribute to my newest school board colleagues, Julia Brim-Edwards and Lorenzo Poe, on this. With their fresh eyes and strong commitment to understand the roles and responsibilities of school board members, Lorenzo and Julia have really pushed us to be more clear and open and focused about our work and responsibility to move forward on the objectives of the strategic plan. So thank you both. So what is it exactly we are doing? And I think since my mother-in-law is here, I'd like her to make sure that my husband knows, because he asks, what are you doing on the phone all the time? Where are you going to yet another meeting? So, Mom. Here are the board's 8 goals for the coming year. Hire a permanent superintendent. Increase student achievement and narrow the achievement gap. Align the budget with student achievement goals and the objectives of the strategic plan. Support employee relations activities to support a culture of service, excellence, and respect. Clean up and organize the district's policy manual. Have the school board engage in more and regular professional development. Support continuing improvement in district communications internally and externally. And finally, review school board zones consistent with election law and support more efficient use of our legal services. It's a long list, and it would be impossible for me to cover all of them in the time I have. So I'm going to briefly discuss the first 3. Searching for a superintendent, student achievement, and aligning our budget to support student achievement. Please feel free to ask questions on any of these later, or always to call or email me, contact me for information on the rest. So where are we on the superintendent search? In June, the board appointed a panel of community members selected for their ability to network, outreach, and listen to the community's concerns about desired and essential traits for new district leadership. The Leadership Advisory Committee, we call them the LAC, has met all summer. Thank you to Chair David Knowles, Co-Chair Lorenzo Poe, and all members, including Mark Abrams. We have Marie Dahlstrom, Scott Bailey, Pat Thompson, principal of Madison High School, Don McClave, Kevin Fuller, James Williams, who's here, Ann Nice, Tara O'Sullivan, Patty Farrow, Marianne Cook, and Felicia Trader. Thank you to all of these folks for the work they've put in this summer. They've conducted numerous community meetings and individual stakeholder interviews, asking questions like, what are the 3 most pressing issues for Portland Public Schools? What are the most important qualities, experiences, and accomplishments that a superintendent should have? What are the critical elements that would lead you to say that the superintendent and the district are succeeding? The LIC's report, representing the voice of the community, will be the basis of the job description for the permanent superintendent. A draft of that final report will be presented to the school board on October 8th. While the LIC was out listening, we interviewed several search consultants and chose Ed Hamilton of Hamilton, Rabinovitz, and Alschuler to assist with the search. Mr. Hamilton and his firm bring great experience to the district, having conducted many CEO-level searches for public and private organizations, and searches for urban education leadership as well, including the superintendent searches in Boston, Los Angeles, and most currently Philadelphia, where he's completing his search, his assistance to the board there in their selection of a new superintendent. Mr. Hamilton was in Portland last week to meet board members, and more importantly, to get a sense of the community at the LAC's final 2 community-wide meetings at Wilson and Madison High Schools. Next steps are the creation of a job description based on the LAC's report and circulation of this job description to advertise a position and to engage Ed Hamilton's extensive networks. We should be able to expect to begin looking at possible candidate resumes within 90 to 100 days of circulating the job description. But the school board absolutely can't ignore our primary mission to improve student achievement while we search for new leadership. And that brings me to the school board's priority focus on student achievement. While achievement is clearly improving overall through the district, there are significantly different levels of achievement between children of color and white children. And that's why I agreed, along with Dr. Pat Burke, Deputy Superintendent of the district, Board Member Lorenzo Poe, and Board Member Lorenzo Poe, to participate in a team to meet over the summer with the Education Crisis Team. I've always believed that where there's agreement on objectives, there can be constructive discussion about means to achieve those objectives. And we agree on objectives, helping all students to achieve. Demonstrations, board meetings cut short, and pot shots are not constructive communication and don't lead to solutions for students. My hope for the discussions facilitated and mediated by Dr. Ethel Simon McWilliams, the retired CEO of the Northwest Regional Educational Lab, was that constructive discussions and planning would take place, and they did. I want to thank Dr. Simon McWilliams for appropriately mediating our meetings and for focusing all of us on realizing academic success for all of our children, or as she likes to say, all of our babies. Unfortunately, there is conflict about the results of our work. The Education Crisis Team released a draft report of the results of our sessions, not Dr. Simon McWilliams. I was not able to attend the last meeting scheduled, but I had and have some questions about the report. Some are minor, some are not so minor. I am confident, though, that my questions can be answered, and then I will endorse it. However, even with my endorsement, it is not a binding agreement on the district, even if 2 board members and the deputy superintendent helped to create it. Oregon open meetings laws require that binding decisions made on public school district business be made in public. Any such closed-door meetings counter a core value of the district and of mine, that involving teachers, parents, principals, and the wider community in decision-making leads to better outcomes. However, as Dr. Simon McWilliams stressed over and over during our meetings, the ultimate objective of our work is improving student achievement for all students, not discussing how we put the document together or how it moves forward. I am fully committed to supporting and moving forward on our work over the summer. The document prepared by Dr. Simon McWilliams is filled with important and agreed upon strategies, like having the district work closely with education schools to make sure that new teachers are adequately prepared to teach reading and math and are culturally competent to teach in a diverse school district like Portland. Also, like having special education teachers reach out to community organizations who serve kids with special needs. Reach out so that they can ask those community organizations to help provide services to special needs students over the summer to ensure a continued level of education to them over the summer. Like asking teachers who have demonstrated success in closing the achievement gap to work with teachers who have not. Now I'm working with the administration, and you'll hear more about this later from Jim, to see that these strategies and the many others we came up with are reviewed by a broader audience. Many of the strategies are financially neutral, but some are not. If they aren't, the district and the board need to consider whether finances should be reallocated towards them and what choices would have to be made to do so. Many strategies do not have implications under labor contracts, but some do. For those that do, we need to fully engage our unions, who are not at the table this summer. Jim, again, will discuss this in greater detail. But I want to state as loudly and clearly as I can, I am committed to moving forward on our work to improve student achievement, and I appreciate the work of everyone who participated in our meetings over the summer. We started these discussions around a draft student achievement policy under consideration by the board. Our proposed policy is available on the district's website, pps.k12.or.us. And it says that all of our schools must be high-performing learning communities, and it describes what those look like. It says the board will use reliable data to monitor the progress of all schools and call for alternatives when there isn't adequate progress at those schools. The Instructional Improvement Committee, which is chaired by Carla Wenzel, will be moving the policy to the board for approval. So watch for opportunities to input and take a look at the policy if you can. The board must focus on data to monitor our progress in that of schools, and we are. When we look at the data we have on state assessment, two things really stand out: the achievement gap, as we've discussed, and the declining rate of achievement as students progress from elementary through middle into high school. Setting policy is just a framework, but it does not alone close the achievement gap or address secondary education's problems. Our work with the crisis team over the summer and the initiative that Jim will be talking about are aimed at improving programs for the lowest achieving students in the district and narrowing the achievement gap. What to do then about achievement in high schools? In partnership with the Portland Schools Foundation, and I see many of them here, Cynthia Geyer, the executive director, the district's high schools have spent a year making plans for smaller schools, schools within schools, schools that are more nurturing and more relevant high school learning communities. This work was made possible through a planning grant from the Carnegie Foundation, and we await word as to whether Portland will be one of 5 school districts nationwide to receive ongoing funding for this work. Regardless, the district must move, perhaps more slowly without money from Carnegie, to reform our high schools. Let me turn now just briefly to the third goal I mentioned on realigning our budget and our fiscal condition to support student achievement. There's lots to say here too, like the way our interim superintendent has already begun a more informed analytical budget planning process. And I'm going to focus on how the district is making better use of its facilities. Like the district's exciting and productive ongoing partnership with the Portland Schools Foundation around high school reform and other innovation, another partnership relevant to budget and property is the Innovation Partnership, a nonprofit group organized to take on persistent community problems. Following up on the work of the district's Best Use of Facilities Task Force, Executive Director Ruth Scott, along with her board chair Pat LaCrosse, have spent hours and hours working on the school district's funding problems, and in particular, the district's above state average facilities costs. With Pat LaCrosse's extraordinary help and that of many other volunteers, the district has the benefit of highly specialized real estate professional expertise on the possible development, sale, or long-term lease of non-school properties, which will bring in greater and ongoing revenue, ongoing income, more money that can be used to support education. This month, for instance, the school board approved the sale of Normandale School to Early Head Start, a program housed in that building for several years, renting space at below market rates. The Innovation Partnership stepped in with its expertise to put together a deal acknowledged by all to be a win-win. The sale of the building at fair market value with a long-term payment stream to the district and a repurchase option works for everyone. Similar work is underway in other non-school buildings, vacant land in Southwest Portland, and the old Washington High School, which we'll be hearing more and more about, I think. There's much to describe about what's happening with the Portland School Board, and I invite you to, again, ask questions, attend our meetings, tune in, keep informed. But I want to make sure you have time to hear from Jim today, and I have to take a moment here just to say thank you to Jim Scherzinger and his management team for so deftly, wisely, and capably guiding and leading this district since this past July 1st through some extraordinarily difficult and challenging times. Radon, lead, mold, and a school board that sometimes thinks any publicity is good publicity. As a customer of Portland Public Schools, a parent, as mentioned, of 2 students, and a school board member, I feel very secure that the district is in extremely capable hands through this interim period. Thank you, Jim, and the senior management team, many of whom are here. It's your turn.
I want to thank my relative for that nice introduction. True to our family, I've already spilled stuff on my tie. So, I also want to recognize and welcome Congressman Wu, who just came in the door and is sitting over there with his staff. Congressman Wu was very nice to come out to my two daughters' middle school, Robert Gray Middle School, in the aftermath of September 11th, and had a nice questioning period. Some tough questions they asked, and so thank him for that. Since then, I feel like I've been following him around because I've been in so many places where he's been. But welcome to him. I've been asked to be substantive and brief, and that's a challenge. I'd like to try to meet that challenge by picking out a theme and sticking to it, and then illustrate it with a few examples. And then after that, you can ask Debbie or myself anything you want in the questioning period. The theme is this, is the district, we, have made some progress in the last few years, but to move further, we have to do things differently. And there's a corollary to the theme. I was a math major, so I get to use words like corollary. The corollary to this theme is to be honest about where we are and where we are going. I have to recognize our successes as well as those areas where we need improvement. And part of the reason that we have problems today is that we haven't done a good job of either one of those. The first example of this theme and the corollary is, and the most important one, is achievement. And I have a handout. I think a lot of you have that on your table I see out there. If you want to look at the back of the first page of that handout, there is some data. Oh no, heaven forbid data. And the first part of the back of the first page shows the percent of students in Portland Public Schools, and the state as well, that meet or exceed the state standards on the state tests for reading and mathematics, the multiple choice tests. And if you look at those numbers, you see that we've made some progress. In fact, they've been consistently rising. And in fact, they're close to the state averages. For example, at third grade reading, the percent meeting or exceeding the state standards has risen from 71% in 1998 to 82% in last year. In last year's 2001. 11 percentage point increase. You can see across the numbers consistently increasing, and that the numbers are very close to the state average. And according to the Council of Great City Schools, we are in the top 5 for raising achievement among large urban districts. Also on the bottom of the page, you'll see some results from our latest satisfaction survey of students, staff, and parents. Particularly looking at the first 3 questions, most students, staff, and parents think that their school is a good one, that the principal and the staff at the school is doing a good job, and in fact, even more importantly, in the last survey, that the quality of education was better, this would be last year now, than it was the year before. So we have had some successes. Nonetheless, we still have significant challenges. First of all, we have a long way to go on these achievement levels, particularly in the upper grades, and you can see that in these statistics. At the 10th grade level, 50% met or exceeded the standard at 10th grade for reading and 40 in math. So we have a long way to go. If you turn to the next page, you'd see we still have a significant achievement gap. This page shows the trends in test scores by ethnic group. So it's, again, the percentage that meet or exceed the state standards. And just as an example, in third grade reading, European Americans were 88% met or exceeded the standard in 2001, whereas only 70% of African Americans and 66% of Hispanic Americans met or exceeded the standards. Now, there's been growth across the board, but the gap is still there. And then finally, we have too many low and very low achieving students. If you turn again to the last page, the State Department of Education categorizes the achievement scores in 5 categories. Exceeds the standards, meets the standards, nearly meeting the standard, and then low and very low. These numbers show you the number of low and very low on the state tests. And for example, in, again, 3rd grade reading, 439 of our students, 12% of all 3rd grade students, were low or very low on the state test last year. So we have too many of those kinds of students. And to get to these students, again, illustrating the theme, to get to these students, we have to do things differently. We have to be able to focus on each individual kid. We have to know what that student knows or doesn't know, what situation that student is in, and what works for that student. We can't deal with these things on a program-by-program basis. We have to be able to know what's going on with that individual student in order to get that student to the level the student needs to be. Now, you might say many good teachers do this already, and you're right, they do. The challenge in an urban district is to build the system to support that and to extend it throughout the district so that it's everywhere. And I think that's a challenge urban districts haven't met in general, but it's the challenge we face. Now, the first part of meeting that challenge is to understand something about these students. And you can see a little bit of that from a district perspective on this chart as well. For example, at 3rd grade reading, of the 439 students that were low or very low achieving, 92 of them were special education students, and 114 were in an English as a second language program. And the rest are in neither of those two. You might call them other. So this gives you at least a sense that these students are in very different situations, and you need to have different types of programs and different kinds of efforts to meet their needs in order to get them to the achievement levels that we want. Another thing about these students is that they're all over the district. Now, this number isn't on here, but when we looked at the school-by-school numbers, and if you're interested in those, we gave them to the board, and if you want to call, I think we may have them on the website, you can look school by school where these students are, that 25 to 30% at 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade of these students are in what we have been calling crisis team schools, which means, of course, that 70 to 75% of them are in other schools. In fact, if you look at the numbers, there's at least one of them in every school in the district. So this is a district-wide problem. Now, that's not to say that there aren't schools and places where the problem is more severe than others, but it is a district-wide problem. So in looking at this problem, I tried to bring some of the lessons from the radon experience that Debbie talked about and the rest of our building problems. And what we learned out of that, and the district really did learn a lot out of that, about how to organize itself as an institution. We had 3 imperatives. Those imperatives were, number 1, take action now. The district has too long operated in a way that people felt like it talked about its problems and didn't act. So it was important to take action now. Secondly, to be sure that that action was consistent with your long-range objectives. You don't want to do something just to do it and then find out you have to undo it later. And thirdly, you have to create a long-range plan. If you just take action now and say, oh good, we're over that problem, and walk away from it, you're going to have the problem back again. So you have to create the long-range plan to permanently deal with the issue. Now, I understand, and certainly my staff and the leadership of the district understands, that when you're talking about instructional issues, it's a more difficult problem. You have many more stakeholders involved, and things are different in every school than with building problems. For example, just looking at a couple of the crisis team schools, at Applegate, 97% of the third grade students meet or exceed the standards. So there are many schools there where things are working well. At Wrigler, over 80% of each ethnic group meets or exceeds the standards. So there are places where things are working. We don't want to take action that disrupts things that are working. And that requires a greater level of sophistication in management in order to be sure we don't do that, yet take decisive action. So 2 weeks ago, I presented to the board a three-part plan, and again, I believe you can get the memo on the web. And the plan really had three elements that we're trying to implement the three imperatives that I talked about. The first one was to create a student achievement steering team to plan and implement district-wide discussions on student achievement. We've already put that in place. We've already started the discussions. We've had cluster meetings with principals. They're examining data on student performance. Many of them already had looked at theirs, and determining what is currently in place that works. And out of this discussion, we will bring to the board in November recommendations to reallocate funds to do additional help for students, low and very low achieving students, in areas that we can identify that we can do things today. The second part of it is to complete what we've been calling the roles and responsibilities matrix from the process that came out of the negotiations with the crisis team and that Debbie talked about a little while ago. And from this, I will present to the board a proposal for a longer-term improvement plan for their consideration, including formation of a community advisory committee on student achievement. And then finally, the third part of the plan is to create a student achievement policy team to work on the policy issues raised by the board's instructional improvement committee and the long-term implications of the findings of these district-wide discussions. This team will produce recommendations for the next budget. At the same time, we should recognize that principals in their school improvement plans have been specifically asked to address the needs of low and very low achieving students. So that's the first example. On the sheet I passed out on the front page, there is a list of let's see if I can find it here, a list of other areas, issues within the district where we've made progress, but we still face significant challenges. And I'm not going to talk in detail about them. Maybe I'll just hit them lightly. First of all, we've had a number of, when I came to the district 3 years ago, we had a number of compliance issues. These issues are either resolved or very near resolution, whether they were the way we were spending our bond money, whether we were up to the Office of Civil Rights standards on our ESL programs, whether we're in compliance with all employment laws or accounting standards. We're near resolution of those problems. The next step, though, is organizational effectiveness. We've gotten in compliance. We're to the position where nobody can sue us, perhaps, over what we're doing, or at least, hopefully. But we need to be more effective as an organization. And there are some steps. And this is really the groundwork for the future. If we don't do this, we're not going to be able to do the rest to make the organization more effective. We put in new computer systems, an entirely new accounting system, HR payroll system. We're going to put in a new student information system. We're getting close to having that system in. But we really haven't done any life cycle systems planning. What is the long-term cost of maintaining these systems? We put in computers in all the classrooms for a bond levy that the voters approved. But we really haven't considered the long-term cost of maintaining those machines. We've gotten our budget nearly fully adjusted for Measure 5. A few little problems lately, but it's near full adjustment for Measure 5 for the first time in, well, Measure 5 passed in 1990. But we really don't do long-term budget planning, and that's the challenge that's ahead. We've got our facilities costs down to the statewide average, but we really can't sustain that unless we do a better job of space allocation and deal with funding of community uses. I think over the last 3 years we've established some legislative credibility, but I don't think we have legislative influence, and we need to get that. We've adopted a strategic plan, a wonderful strategic plan, with the help of the foundations. But we really don't have a vision for how we're going to implement it. We have a diverse community. We have lots of community resources here. And we have a tremendous willingness to help the district. It's both our strength and our weakness. Every community organization that wants to help us deserves to get a consistent, clear response from the district about how that organization can shape its activities to help us toward our common goal. It's a difficult management task, more difficult than that facing others with less diversity and fewer resources. If we fail, the conflict can be and has been painful. But if we can manage it, the reward will be beyond what others can ever hope to achieve. So I think we're ready for questions.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming to our family reunion. We appreciate it. And speaking of which, I am the membership chair, and I notice that there are a lot of new faces here. Can I have a show of hand of all of our guests? Super. Now I'm hoping that you'll all go sign up for membership on your way out, and you are welcome to join our new membership meeting. Now I'll get to my question. And we've heard reports that the state will once again face a multi-million-dollar budget shortfall at the next legislative session. In fact, we've heard that it might go as high as $300 million. In light of the tight budgets of most school districts, including ours, do you have any ideas for raising revenue on a statewide basis? A math question.
Well, sure, there are a lot of ideas on raising revenue. In fact, if you were to look at Oregon's experience, and I was part of a lot of that experience, the most likely would be some sort of surtax like we did in 1982. I think it was 82, right, Jane? I think it was 82, when we were in the depths of one of the worst recessions we ever had in Oregon. So I would say that's the most likely alternative in the short term. That's not to say that it's likely given the political climate of today, but if they were to look for a revenue source, that would be the most likely. There are many others. I know anybody that's been around Oregon for any length of time has probably seen almost every option on the ballot, and I don't think I'm here today to go through all those options.
Want me to add to that? Sure. I usually don't have much to add to Jim's discussions about revenue, especially with this legislature, so I won't. But, you know, it does seem to me incredibly ironic that we will be receiving our kicker checks back in November and December, about the time that Jim and his team will start reconfiguring and looking at how we cut into our budget. So there's a policy issue underlying there, but there's also a real issue about how this community supports its schools. And I hope that we think very hard about what we do with those kicker checks that we get back this year. Portland Schools Foundation always does a significant campaign to bring back that money to schools, and we're going to need it.
David Wu, frequently a City Club member, and if I'm not currently a City Club member, the check is in the mail. I thank Jim for his recognition of my Robert Gray visit, and I just wanted to mention a couple of things about schools and what I think is necessary under these troubling times. I was at the Newburgh Education Service, the administrative buildings in Newburgh, yesterday at Scappoose High School and St. Helens High School and Astoria High School, and today at Wilson High School and Lincoln High School. And a bunch of Lincoln folks are right here right now, and they were absolutely terrific. And I usually enjoy visiting schools a whole lot, and my staff sort of measures them out as rewards for other work that I've done. But we have stepped up the school visit schedule because frequently in our society, our social stresses come out in our children, in our young people. And this is appropriately a very stressful time. Because of technology, we repeatedly saw this terrible crash into the Second World Trade Tower, and it is as if we were all on the sidewalk there in New York. We are a nation going through traumatic distress syndrome, and the only this is not going to be a question, and we are the signs are irritation and lack of sleep. And a lot of folks are going through that right now, especially our young people. And the only cures for that are time and talk. And I'd encourage every adult here to talk and talk and talk, and for young people to talk with each other to get through this time together. Secondly, there's an adult responsibility to convey correct information. At every high school I've gone to, there's been a question about a national draft. That is incorrect. As far as I know, there is no current plan for a national draft of any kind, and I want to get that information out there as much as possible because a lot of young people are tense about it. And finally, there seems to be a flag shortage in the state of Oregon. And just as New York is grateful for all this food and supplies that we have sent, there's cat food and dog food and bottled water stacked up to the ceilings of a church there.
Thank you, Congressman Wu, because we really need some time for questions.
Finally, New York and Los Angeles have been kind enough to send 451 flags, and they will be available gratis, Pioneer Courthouse Square, today at 5 p.m. If you want to make a donation to the Red Cross, that'll be available. And thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Bob McCarthy, City Club member. Jim and Debbie, I want to ask you a question about leadership, and particularly leadership of the district. And I'd like to frame it around the Oregonian editorial. I think it was on Monday. Did you happen to see it? It talked about leadership of the district from a team perspective, and their point of view was it's very difficult to find someone with all the requisite skills, political, financial, change management, and the like. I'd like to know what you think about that perspective. And what skills do you think you currently have in the management team? And a related question, Jim. Are you interested in the job?
Why don't you go first? What do you think about that one? I know what I'll say.
Thank you for the question. I think what do I think about that? I can't speak for the whole board, but I think that it's pretty clear that the job is too big. The job in all those elements that you described is more than one person. It does require a team approach. There's also I think there is, my own personal view is that there's a leadership quality, a leadership essence that is how to be part of a team, how to manage a leadership team. So one of the things I'll be looking for is that kind of quality, because I do believe there are many strengths here in this district. As Jim mentioned, we've had success in having greater legislative credibility. I think we have we have strengths in managing our business section, coming together in terms of systems and in terms of overall management. We have a lot of strengths, both, I think if you took all of the management team, but what is really required is the right fit among people. And so we have to take a very close look at that. I did read that editorial, and I think the editorial was right on.
I agree with the editorial as well, particularly the notion that this job is too big. You cannot expect someone to come in and tell everyone what to do and have a person that knows everything and knows how to do it, particularly in this community. And I go back to the notion that all of the resources we have, people that are willing to help. And there's no way any one person can understand all of that. And in addition to that, I would say that the staff that we have, the principals, the teachers, the head office staff, the vast majority of them work hard. They work hard for the district. They have a very strong identity with the district, and they want to do well. And so the goal of a superintendent is to put them in a position that they can do that, so they can work together as opposed to conflict to achieve that. Most of us want to do the best for kids, and we have to find a way to work together to achieve that, understanding how hard it is when there are so many different ways, so many different kinds of people, and so many different organizations and resources that we have. So I agree with that, that's the focus that we need to take in looking for someone. As for me, what I've told the board, and I honestly believe, is that I'm perfectly happy going back being the finance officer. That's what I was hired to do. I'm perfectly happy doing it. I think of it as a team. The purpose of the team is to move this district, and whatever position I have on the team, I'm happy to play, as long as I feel I'm effective. And that's the way I feel about it. If at the time the team is going to be formed, that it looks like things would work out, I'd be glad to play another position, but that time isn't yet.
Hi, Scott Juan, Lincoln High School, ex-Constitution team member, and thank you for coming here today. You talk about all these plans to get students more involved and such, but one thing that I do not see happening is the fact that students who all of these plans have the most effect on, we don't have as much of a legal voice or any power on any of these committees. The student representative doesn't even have a legal vote when he or she votes. So my question is there any plans for now or in the future or any mechanism to get more students involved and to give students a greater voice, greater power, like political and legal power, on the school board?
Well, thanks for the question. The legality of a student vote on the school board would be up to the legislature, and we don't have that on our list of items to go before the legislature with the next time they come into regular session. It's a matter to talk about. Jennifer Lewis, James Williams is here, Misha Isaac. We've had 2 Lincoln representatives onto the school board. Have extensive outreach efforts to students to be involved. I know that Jennifer, we just got a tremendous report from Jennifer on the 3 groups that she's been working with, both Super SAC, which meets, this is, by the way, an incredible group of students who meet every Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. at Tubman Middle School to talk about issues for the public, for their schools, representatives from every high school and some middle school. So amazing commitment on the part of students. Jennifer also has a council of student leaders. There are opportunities for input in those ways, but there's always opportunities to talk to the board. Everybody else does. Provide as much input as you can.
I think in addition to that, because I think that was well spoken, there's a little bit of a fallacy here, and it goes back to the question about the superintendent. And that fallacy is that if you don't have influence at the top, you don't have influence. And in fact, the whole notion of the strategic plan is to push decision-making out into the schools where the action is. And that is where people need to have influence. The whole notion of what we're trying to do with management, even at the head office, is to push decisions through the whole leadership team down to principals and others that need to be involved in, not just make decisions at the top. And so I think the real important thing is creating structures where students have influence in the schools, and that's a big part of the rethinking of high schools. It's part of the Carnegie Grant application, is to give students more influence and direction within the schools, the high schools themselves. And I think that's the direction that the district is going in.
That's right. Agreed. In a few moments, we'll lose our going live on public cable, but we would like to keep on the questions if that's all right. And I also want to make a correction. I have here for the October 2nd meeting that I mentioned, Government Services and Safety Committee. It'll be at 5:30 at Kel's Irish Pub in the second floor banquet room. Thanks. So next question.
Hello, my name is Andrew Rosenthal. I'm a senior at Lincoln High School, and I think at this point an honorary member of the City Club, although I'm not sure. And this question's directed to Jim Schwarzenegger and Debbie Menashe both. I've wanted to ask about something which I think has been on the mind of a lot of people recently. It's a word which has been thrown around today during today's conversation and in the media a lot, and that word is community. And I'm wondering if the school board, or if you two feel that there is a disconnect between the community and the school board, and if you would agree with some of the groups of students, parents, teachers, and staff who have, over the last few months or over the last year, maybe felt like the community was not working well, the school board wasn't working well with the community. If you see there's a problem, how is the school board working to fix that?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I feel a disconnect. I mean, certainly there are controversies and issues and conflicts. The district is big. The district is diverse. And one answer in one place is going to cause conflict in another place. And as a school board, we represent the entire district, the entire community. We're drawn from all over the city to bring those things together. So we have to listen to different parts of the community, and I don't feel disconnected at all. In fact, I think we feel very connected with the community, very strongly, very often, in every way. But does that mean that there's no conflict? Does that mean there isn't controversy? Absolutely not. And I don't know that it would be possible to push change, move the district in different direction without stirring controversy. Now, does it have to be disruptive? Does it have to be stifling? Does it have to be name-calling? It shouldn't be. And what are we doing to address that? We're trying to model amongst ourselves, for the whole community, a culture of respect.
The thing I would add to that is I think there is an issue with the management of responsiveness. The district itself, the management of the district, has to be more responsive to the community. And by responsive, I mean that it doesn't necessarily have to always give the answer that whoever is trying to impact the district wants, but it does